Welcome, everybody, to episode 6 of In the Stiffs. They all nailed it.
Brilliant.
Ready, everybody? Everybody okay?
Let's go.
Just keep going, just in case. How are you, Gavin?
I'm very well. Yourself?
Good, thank you. Good.
David?
We've started this very formal, lads, haven't we?
David, how are you?
Amazing.
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 That's
Yeah.
good to hear.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, right. This episode is entitled "Footballing Heroes."
Oh,
Now, it's a tough one for Dave, isn't it? Because it's obviously obvious reasons. I'm sat right here.
yeah.
So we're not going to dwell on that, are we? So we're going to have a little think about who are our footballing heroes, because we've all got them. Anybody in football has got their heroes, people they loved when they were growing up, big part of their childhood. I think let's start off with Super Dave Edwards. Who was your hero, Dave? When you were a young lad knocking around Ponsbury in your shorts,
As a young kid.
young, like really young, when you were sort of...
I think because it's my first experience of football. We spoke about this before. My first thing I can really remember is having the VHS, the video cassette of Italia 90. And the amount of times I watched it just over and over and over and over. And it was an England-based one, following all their games. And I just loved Gaza because I think he was so popular in that time. And off the back of it, I got a Tottenham kit, which he was playing for at the time. The away one, the yellow one. Remember Holston on it?
Holston, yeah.
So I had that. And loved everything about it.
The away one, sorry, not the white one.
No, the away one, yeah. The yellow one.
Oh, yeah, the yellow
one.
Oh, the yellow one.
Yeah, it was nice.
Oh,
and then
literally, I've just had floods of nostalgia go through my body.
Holston on the thing.
When you were a kid?
Yeah, Holston.
No,
yeah, Holston.
no. I wasn't really a fan of anyone at this point, but I remember I wanted that kit because of Gaza.
Yeah.
And I always remember I used to replay it over and over. I think it was in I want to say the Cameroon game. He's running down the right and he does a Cruyff turn.
Yeah.
And it's one of the first times I've ever seen it. And I remember them just showing replay after replay of that on the VHS. And then obviously he had a unbelievable
was that
tournament.
Belgium, that Cruyff turn?
No, well, he did it loads, didn't he, in the tournament?
There's one really...
I remember he's running down
iconic
the right hand side of the pitch, and then he did this Cruyff turn.
I think it might have been Belgium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
No, yeah.
But I mean, that was Italian 90.
David Platt scored.
Davis with the volley, off Gaza's free kick, wasn't it?
Yeah. Italian 90 was... I was a bit older then, that was like, but absolutely special.
That was prime for me. Same Gaza.
So I was only 4, but I had a VHS and then just watched it after that. Yeah. So probably my first childhood memory for football.
Quality, man.
Yours, Gaza?
Yeah, without trying to be a copycat, it was just Italia 90 for me. I was obsessed with football anyway, but that sent me over the edge. Like, complete psycho to football. Gaza was just the be-all and end-all. And we had... I was really lucky because, do you remember... They used to have the England tracksuits and the England kit. But do you remember they used to have...
Remember the England tracksuit?
But do you remember they had the fake ones? So they used to have the England tracksuit, which was like 100 quid, which I suppose in today's money is about 250 quid. And then they used to have the fake ones. So they're like replica. So they looked like the real ones, but they weren't. And everybody was wearing them. And I had the real one. But where I come from, you don't have the real one. So I wasn't allowed to walk on my own because probably one of the older boys would rob it off me. But we used to, our local pub, we used to have Christmas Carol, she was called, all year round. And basically, if you wanted anything, you used to say to her...
What, anything?
Yeah. anything from the shops, Sam. Anything from the shops, but yeah, anything. Yeah, and used to send, and she'd come back, and what was about 100 quid, you could get for about 15 quid.
So that tracksuit in my head, is it the one that's kind of white at the top, then it's got like the blue...
That's it, yeah.
It's Umbro, wasn't it? So the blue come down
and the fake one.
It's a shell suit.
Yeah, shell suit, that's it, yeah. And I had the white one, and do you remember the one after that was the blue one with the buttons across? That was after Italia 90.
I remember that.
So I didn't get the Tottenham kit, but I just had everything, and I wanted Gascoigne. And I remember I got the England shirt, and obviously absolutely, but I've got the real England shirt, not the moody one, not the one with the triangles on and all of that. I got the real one, and I was so obsessed with Gaza that I thought, I've got to have his name on the back. So I was pestering Mum. She was like, I don't know where to get it. And we had this place, Harper Sports. And I kept saying, let's go to Harper Sports. Like, can we do it at Harper Sports? Just wouldn't do it. So just in my infinite wisdom that night, I got a felt tip pen, and I was going to put Gaza 19 on the back. But obviously I've gone right the way through the shirt, into the front. And I'm buzzing, and I've looked at it, and I've gone, yes, I've done it just perfect.
Nailed it.
And I'm decent at bubble writing. I'm good at all that, right?
Very good.
Like one of the elites in Essex at the time. But I've obviously put it on, seeing the back, and then put it on the front, and seen it all backwards. off the front.
Oh,
And I got
devastating.
absolutely whooped for it. I got absolutely hammered for it by my mum.
Oh, but it's cute that you've tried to do it, though, haven't you?
Yeah, I
Just,
thought
like,
so.
loved
I
him.
thought so, but yeah, she weren't happy.
Any other players from that team?
Yeah, I did like David Platt.
Yeah, he had a good tournament, didn't he? Really
Great
good
tournament, yeah. And I was a little bit as well. Stuart Pearce. I always liked Stuart Pearce. Just
Definitely.
I think-
Psycho.
I think the one I've missed out, which is ridiculous of me, was Chris Waddle. I was a Chris Waddle fan. And like you say about Tottenham with Gaza,
Yeah.
I loved Sheffield Wednesday because of Chris Waddle. I was all over him. Not sure he was there at the time, but
Was he
Because Tottenham
Newcastle?
Waddle would have
Yeah.
been at Tottenham at the same
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Like, similar time.
Later on, when he went to Sheffield Wednesday, my grandparents on my stepdad's side were living in Sheffield, and they were like, "What are you, Wednesday or United?" And I was like, "Chris Waddle plays for Wednesday," so I'm all over him. So yeah.
He's a bit older than one.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, amazing. For me, Gaza as well. When I was a bit older then. I was like a teenager when Gaza.
Especially being a Geordie as well.
It was everything. Everyone. When Italian 90, when he got the yellow card and he was missing the final, honestly, I was in bits. Started crying. Maybe my brother was crying. I was like watching it with my dad. Dad's like, "Oh my God," we were just like, "I couldn't believe it."
Yeah.
Because we loved him so much. Because he was just such a character. And we talked before, Gav, when he used to run with his elbows up, didn't he? So I used to, like you said, Gav, you used to run around with your elbows up, trying to be like Gaza. I used to do it in the garden with my little brother, elbow in the face, pop his nose.
He used to have like when he used to do his crawl, he used to have like one elbow up. So I used to run around on for my junior team, and I'd run with my elbow up, and my dad would say, "Put your elbow down," because I was doing it for show. Yeah. I didn't have my elbow up naturally. I was doing it for show, just like that. He's going,
Looking awkward.
You're hindering your own performance, son. Like, what are you doing? I was just like, that's how I have my elbow. He's like, no, that's how Gaza has his elbow.
Gaza in Italian 90. Then Gaza also, he played in Euro 96. And at the time, I was probably nearly 20, so I was living in a flat in Newcastle, me and my brother. That is full on Oasis time.
Wow,
So
wow.
I'm walking around like trying to get my hair like Liam Gallagher, which is very difficult. I never quite pulled that off.
No, more like Leo Sayer.
Jacket zipped up. Had a little flat in Newcastle, me and my brother.
Dangerous.
Amazing. Mates used to come around going, "Oh my God, Sam, you've been burgled." I was like, I haven't. I haven't. They've wrecked the place. Like, nah, it's fine. We're the best.
Didn't have anything.
You've been robbed. You've been robbed. No, we haven't. Look what they've done in the bathroom. No,
They've taken the beds and left the mattress on the floor.
look what they've done to their place. No, it's fine. It's
Quality.
fine.
So you and your brother living in the centre of Newcastle.
Yeah.
You're 20. Oasis are in full.
Yeah, he's 18. Euro 96, amazing. But Italian 90 is the special one, isn't it?
Are we going to sing Nessun Dorma or should we wait to the end?
Wait till the end.
Wait till the end.
We'll sign off with it. Sign off with it. But my one before that, I just mentioned it before, Mirandinha. Now, there's only me and Gav, I think, in this room who remember Mirandinha. Young lads and clueless. Witz doesn't know it.
I was obsessed with him.
Mirandinha didn't play for Shrewsbury, though, so Witz doesn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got his name is Mirandinha. He's
He's
not
from Argentina. He's from Brazil. He's in Brill.
I can't say that, can I? 'Cause I'm a head teacher. I can't swear. That was amazing. He
That's a good tune, that.
Great tune.
He scored for Brazil against
It's a
England.
great tune when me and Sam are walking down the high street after a few beers.
that.
No one knows who Mirandinha is.
Sounds better.
Yeah.
I can't believe anybody doesn't know that, but he was amazing.
He was
Who's that one of
quality.
your childhood heroes?
Yeah, I'm Peter. Oh, a bit old.
Pedro.
I'll come back. I'll come on to Peter Beardsley in a minute because that was a bit. I was a bit older then.
Can I confess to something? You know your story on Peter Beardsley when you went to when you were at Sunderland.
I'll tell it.
I tell everyone that. You've said it on the pod. Like I
I said
tell
it on the podcast. Did I?
Yeah, say it again though. Just so because like new listeners, we've got loads of new listeners,
Peter
haven't we?
Beardsley, like he's had a few difficulties with bits, hasn't he? Got not anyway, whatever happened anyway happened. But when I was a kid, he was sensational. Loved him, and I was a schoolboy in Newcastle, so I must have been probably 16, so would have been like in year 11. And when pre-season training, I was at Newcastle. That's signed for Newcastle. And with pre-season training, we all joined in, like Kevin Keegan's, like all the first team, all the the YTs, and sorry, forget that. I would have been 70, so I'd have been like the same as the first year YT, but I stayed at school. So we all trained together. So I said, everybody get a partner to stretch. So everybody just went off in their little groups, and Peter Beardsley, who's the Newcastle superstar, just went, "I'll stretch off for you, mate." So I'm stood there, my first day of pre-season, like same age as the first year YT, stretching off with Peter Beardsley. I couldn't believe it. Like I just thought, what an unbelievable lad. He's like just pulled me just to make my day. He was amazing.
I always remember what you said. He said he went.
So-
Don't
Don't be disrespectful.
No, sorry. That's what he said, though. That's what he said.
Then, right? So then, like, buzzing, like, I was like, oh, that is Pedro, me mate. So then, 2 years later...
This is the best bit.
2 years later, I'd signed for Sunderland. I was a first-year pro at Sunderland, and we played Newcastle away in their youth team. I've gone in there with all the Sunderland lads, got off the bus at Newcastle. Peter Beardsley's walking out. There's like 20 of us all walking in. Peter Beardsley's gone, Sam! And shouting at me like that, like giving me like a thumbs up and that or whatever like that.
And you were with all your mates?
With all the Sunderland lads as well. I was like,
Pedro.
I'm like, yeah, give us a yard, Pedro. I'm with the lads, like, flipping heck, Pedro.
That's quality.
I'll catch you later. Send a text later. I just thought he was an absolute class act. Loved him.
That's class.
Do you remember? I've got one, the opposite end of the spectrum to that, where my heart was broken. Ready? So...
Never meet heroes.
So you understand when I say who it was. So, you know, when you're younger and you're being cited by loads of academies and that, and your mum and dad get the card, don't they? So-and-so want to sign you on that. Well, one of them was Norwich. So we were considering Norwich, or my mum and dad was considering me going to Norwich. So what they do is they invite you to a game on a Saturday, and obviously they get you in the players' lounge and you have a meal before the game, and they really try and
I didn't know any of that.
yeah. So they really try and lay it on thick for you to sign. So obviously, like, I was buzzing, and like we went to about 3 or 4 of them, but Norwich was one of them, and we went up into the players' lounge, and Tony Adams was suspended, and we walked into and I loved him. Like, obviously by this time now, I'd scored 100 goals in my first season as a striker, then sort of not a lot in the second, and then found myself in midfield and slowly had moved my way back to centre-half. Was thinking it'd probably be goalkeeper next, but centre-halves were on my agenda now. And he was there, and he had his back to me. And I remember he turned round, and as he turned round, he had his fingers on a cigarette, and he was smoking. And obviously being a young lad, just being taught to live a clean life, do it right, and he was smoking. I thought... Oh, it got me. Obviously, he's not a bad person, and obviously, like, you know, he's probably suspended, and football was very different back then, wasn't it, to
unusual
today?
For the English lads to smoke, though, because when I don't know if you experienced this, Dave, you probably didn't, you a bit later, but like when I was at Sunderland, we had when we had the cup, we had Eric Roy, we had Lionel Perez, like French lads would all smoke.
Yeah.
It was just part of
Eastern European as well.
But then there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot of foreign players in the game at that time, and Tony Adams was still in his prime, and he turned around, he was smoking.
And was that part of the English football?
Nah, definitely wasn't. But he was a boozer, wasn't he? He was a boozer,
yeah.
and I was like, oh, it got me a little bit. I still loved him, but yeah, broke my heart a little bit.
We had Nenad Milius at Wolves. Used to smoke quite a bit.
Did he?
But unbelievable. Just shows you that as much as you want to look after yourself, if you've got the ability, it doesn't matter as much. He was an absolute baller.
Paul Scholes was saying it, wasn't he, recently? I've seen a couple of clips of him talking about how, you know, they're saying, what was Zidane like, and you know, what was it like coming up against these specimens, these physical specimens like Vieira? And he was like, I never really bothered with them because that wasn't really my game. I used to just like all be in my brain and find the space. And whilst they were all in the gym, I used to just like, the only time I was in the gym was doing 2-touch. And it's like, everybody's different, aren't they?
Yeah, of course.
Like Vieira needed to be that, didn't he? Because he couldn't do what Scholes does. He needed to be that. Whereas Scholes knew that he was never going to compete like that. But
your super strength, work on your super strength.
Yeah, 100%.
Spoken about before, haven't we? As you got a bit older then, Dave, so you had Gazza as a youngster. When you got a bit older, like teenager, starting to become a good footballer, who was your heroes then?
I had 2 really. One that a lot of people wouldn't know, Witz will know him. But I'd support Shrewsbury, so I'd go to a lot of Shrewsbury games, but started supporting Newcastle as well. Really random. Started supporting Newcastle, got all the kits, all through my teenage years I was supporting them. So
why is that then? Because I did that. And I know, like, obviously you would have done because you were from Newcastle. But why does
it was
it the Keegan thing?
Anticipation of our relationship.
Yeah, 100%. I had remember the Grandad collar shirt?
Yeah, I had
remember
that, yeah.
Amazing. All of them with the Newcastle brand now and all that. Why is it Newcastle? Was it Kevin Keegan at the time? Was it Bobby Robson?
Geordies are better than other people from different areas.
Yeah, probably that. Yeah.
My exact reason was I remember that all of my mates supported like United and things at the time of flying, and I thought I want to support someone different, and it was the year Newcastle got promoted. And I thought
the entertainers.
Yeah, so they got promoted out of Division 1 back then. It was into Premier League, Division 1. So it was their first season in the Premier League. I thought I'd follow them. And then it took off for them. So I was so lucky, right through the late 90s.
And everybody.
Exactly. But then from when I was starting to learn more about football.
Beresford.
Yeah. Warren Barton, Peacock, Albert, every whole team, mate.
Albert, the 5-0.
They,
Albert.
Batty,
Ginola.
Rob Lee, Gillespie, Ginola, Ferdinand, Shearer, Espria.
Keith Gillespie.
Keith Gillespie as well, yeah.
Class. Cernacek.
Darren Peacock.
Bless his soul.
Pavel Cernacek died. He used to take me from training, drop me off at school when I was in sixth form.
It was him and Shaka Hislop. There was never really number one. They kind of kept flipping between each other.
And Pavel is a Geordie, they all used to sing. I come up with a t-shirt when he was seeing Pavel is a Geordie. What a man he was. Nicest man you'll ever meet.
So briefly, the Shrewsbury player I used to really like was a guy called Richard Scott. He'd be before your time, Sam, wouldn't he? Richard Scott. He's a midfielder, but I was kind of...
They used to call him Hughesy.
That's him, yeah. Wits no, but he's a midfielder, box-to-box midfielder, and I was already at that age, I knew that's the type of player I wanted to be. So I used to love him. And then for Newcastle, going into sort of my later teenage years, it was Gary Speed. And then I got the pleasure then of playing against him and then obviously managing for Wales.
Wow.
And that was amazing because he was absolutely the exact player I wanted to be. In terms of midfielder, box to box, good in the air, all those things, and see that you can make it to the top level. And then I remember playing against him when he was at Sheffield United, and I was playing for Wales at that time for Wolves, and he had retired from Wales, but I remember he introduced himself to me in the tunnel, and I was like, Speedo, how on earth does he know who I am, sort of thing, even though he's playing championship level and things like that. I think I was in and around the 21s and trained with the first team when Speedo was in the first team of Wales, but never properly played with him. And then obviously he becomes manager and he calls you up. So
he picked. So what was that going? Tell me that first phone call. Did he ring you to pick you?
No, because he kind of took over from John Toshak, and then it was just as normal. Then you get a squad announcement, you go in. He for what Wales,
does he not ring you to see you in the team?
No, you just get the squad announcement, and then you're there.
How do you get the squad announcement?
You just get a message off one of the guys from the FAW saying you've been selected and all the details. But I remember going in, and I was
a bit bad now. I want to.
But I was like, he made massive changes right from the start as soon as we went back there, because under John Toshak it was so relaxed, like ridiculously relaxed. There's no real tactical elements to it. Like, he's an amazing manager. He's won the Champions League around, I think, John Toshak. But obviously it's a different generation and all the modern day stuff in terms of all the tactics, recovery, treating your body right. None of that was there under John Toshak. Like, for instance, we used to train at 10:30. Boys would get up at 10:10, go grab a piece of toast and walk down and eat it on the way to training. So stuff like that for international football, which is mental. So Gary Speed stopped all that. We even had like big jugs of Coke on the table and things like that. There'd be red wine on the coach's table. Mental. But Gary Speed came in, changed the whole philosophy. But I remember I was really starstruck when I first met him. And he's got this real like infectious laugh, like a little giggle. And everyone just loved him. Like, everyone loved him, and no one saw what was going to happen. Do you know what I mean? You would never give off that sort of aura at all. So it was amazing for me to have someone that I looked up to so much as a player. And I remember the Newcastle kit I had, I remember him wearing, you know, the big shield on the back that you put the number in, like a black shield on the back. And it had like a bit of blue on the collar. I remember it's black and white with a bit of blue on the collar. But then obviously to go play against him and then for him to be your manager, it was like
that's amazing,
incredible,
isn't it?
So they're my two through my teenage years, definitely, who I really looked up to.
As a character, what was he like then?
Just like I said, just like he had that infectious laugh. He was like very happy-go-lucky, always having a laugh and things like that. But then when it was time to work and meetings and that, he was so focused.
He seemed to have a really good balance in the way
he did. Yeah, and he had good people around him in terms of his coaching staff and things like that. They brought out the best of him. But yeah, he was amazing. And he transformed Wales. Like Chris Coleman then took it to the next level. I'm very confident Gary Speed would have done that as well if he'd still be around and still been in charge. But it all started from him. We were going nowhere really. John Toshak brought loads of young players in, the likes of Gareth Bale, Chris Gunter, all those, gave him loads of experience early, which got the platform. But then Gary Speed lifted that and then put us at a level where we were winning all the time. His last game, we beat Norway 4-1 at home, and we were sensational. So it was all building towards that. So incredible.
Class. When you were teenagers, you got a bit older. I
was. Yeah, my dad was taking me a lot to watch QPR then. So yeah, it was like the QPR team finished the top.
QPR had a good team then.
Yeah, so it was the highest placed London team. I think I can't remember what year it was. 95 or something like that. But yeah, it was like Ian Holloway was playing midfield. You had Darren Peacock, Alan McDonald, who I absolutely adored, Bardsley, David Bardsley, Clive Wilson, Andy Impey.
Yeah,
Furlong there at that point. Or was
No,
that
so
after that?
he came after. Yeah, but I was still there. And then Kevin Gallen was coming through as well. And then
Les
you had
Ferdinand not there
Gavin.
then?
Les Ferdinand.
Gavin Peacock
Gavin
as well.
Peacock, Trevor Sinclair. I always remember like Andre Kanchelskis was like considered the fastest of the fast, wasn't he? He's rapid. And I always remember I used to sit in the West Paddock, so it was like real sort of pitch level. And Kanchelskis shifted the ball past Andy Impey and got after it. Like he was gone. And he was about a yard ahead of Andy. He had the run on him, and Andy Impey absolutely smoked him. And I couldn't wait to get to school the next day to tell everyone, saying Andy Impey's quicker than Kanchelskis, and everyone's going, "All right, we support West Ham." And I was like, "Yeah, but what about Andy Impey last night?" And they were like, "Yeah, don't believe you." But yeah, so it was that team that were just like quality. Jerry Francis was the manager. So, and I just loved Alan McDonald. I loved him because he was just like a proper old school warrior. You know, I remember him getting smashed in the face and his nose was all over his face. And they're going like, do you want a little bit like the Kevin Ball story you tell about his jaw, and it's like, he ain't coming off. Do you know what I mean? And you just think, oh, what a guy. And, you know, he's like Northern Irish, massive human being. And he would literally like walk past and you'd be stood by the tunnel and he'd put his hand on your head. I remember he put his hand on my head and he could have literally just crushed my skull. Do you know what I mean? He's just such a man. And I thought, oh, flipping, he's quality. Like, I just couldn't, and I'd poster of him on my wall. And so it's that QPR team. And then I think that was it was around 95, 96 World Cup. And that's when I started liking, I loved my flair players as well. So like Rui Costa, Portugal.
Yeah.
I used to love Rui Costa. And that was a great year when I loved Gaza obviously, but I remember Rui Costa was absolute quality in that tournament.
American 94, wasn't it?
No, that
Costa?
was Euro 96.
I'm thinking DiBaggio and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Let's not go down that route. We tried that in the last series, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think we got 99% of the things wrong.
Yeah, we absolutely. So yeah, I suppose Alan McDonald, that QPR team, all of them.
QPR though, I think are great. I mean, have you played a QPR?
Loads, yeah.
I've played a couple of times. It's just like a great club, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think everybody likes QPR a little bit. It's a great team, didn't it, for a long time? Because
there's like this sort of like, it's London, isn't it? So there's like loads of London teams, and like the reason I started watching QPR is like my uncle was like trying to phone round just to go and watch a QPR team train. We'd like basically they got us out of school, my dad and my uncle, and me and my two cousins had been like, right, we're going to go and watch a team train. Phone round everywhere, no one would have us, and QPR were like, yeah, come down. Next thing you know, Ray Wilkins is there. And he's he's like going, come on boys, come and sit next to us at the training ground. Like, so we're having breakfast with all the players. This was like, woke up with my nan's in London in the morning, Nan Bo going like, right, what are we doing today? Like, we're going to watch QPR train. So we got there. Next thing I know, I'm sat next to Ray Wilkins, and he's going, right boys, like sign this for the lads, and showing us round. And
but that's what Dave won't even know about that. Like you could go and watch them train. So
we used to get it at Wolves. We used to get fans coming to watch as long as it wasn't on the day before a game.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I see you do know about it then.
Yeah.
No, because we used to go watch Newcastle train. I remember, like, you'd stand there and just be a little row, and you just stand there and watch the whole session.
Oh, like, unbelievable.
Crazy, unbelievable.
Not only did they have us for the day, and I'll always remember this, they had us, we had a little kickabout as they were transitioning from different like parts of the session. They'd have a little kickabout with us. I'm like doing little 1-2s with like Les Ferdinand. And then I'd gone into like, they'd showed us the treatment area. And there was, Chris Bart-Williams was in there. And Chris Bart-Williams, and he was getting treatment. And there was a youth team lad, I always forget his name. I have to remember it mentioned on the next show. But he was like, oh, you should come to the game tonight. And my uncle was like proper bold as brass, massive Londoner. And he'd go, yeah, go on then, we'll do that. And next thing you know, we had tickets to this youth team. They had a FA Youth Cup game that night. And they took us there. And I remember it for the rest. I'm 42 years old and I remember it. And that's what you do now for your kids, isn't it? Like you do all of those things.
You can't do that. It's not that access anymore, isn't it? I mean, I've been to Wolves a few times and that. And they're like, even when Wolves Academy, and they're like getting you out, even if you're not even allowed to stand near where the players drive out.
Nah.
It's like they get out of the way because they're like, why do you have to get out of the way? Because the players are going to drive 25 yards away from you. Yeah. You're thinking like, what? Why? Yeah. I know everybody's got their phones now and everybody's looking for a story or trying to cause problems, but
it's mad. Not the same. But do you remember the story I told you about like Colchester? And we got a phone call about Newcastle coming, and they were playing something like 3 games in 5 days in London, and they were playing Crystal Palace. I remember Crystal Palace was being the one after, but they were obviously staying at a place called Five Lakes, which is near Colchester. Yeah. So they were training
quite
at Colchester.
Place, isn't it, to stay?
And like we got a call, and like no one knew, but Newcastle were training at Colchester's ground, and that was like spitting distance from where we were. So we went down there. I remember it was snowing, and like I was like, as it like mum and dad got us out of school. And I was like, what are we doing? Like, it's going to be a surprise. Next thing I know, Shaka Hislop gets off the coach. And he's like, all right, boys. And then we just sat in a stand. There was no one there. We were probably one of about 10 people. And we watched Les Ferdinand come out and Shaka Hislop, David Batty. And they're all just going, I'm going, all right. And they're like...
Class.
Yeah.
That's what's amazing though, isn't it? You know, like, you don't... And I think what you don't realise as a player, you can absolutely... Like, you remember that now.
Yeah.
They've said the players, when players need to realise, don't they? I think players are pretty good now, aren't they?
Yeah.
That interaction you can have with a kid, just take 30 seconds, can have such an impact.
I think players get a bit of a bad press. I think the players are up for the interaction for the most part. I think it's more the pressure is on the staff and the officials around it, and they're told, look, this needs to happen, protect at all times, and it's sort of their job, isn't it? And I know you could call them jobs worse, but when it's someone's job, they sort of like go, oh well, I'm sort of stuck in between a rock and a hard place. I want that little kid to go up to his window and get a little picture, but I've been told I can't.
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't
You
it?
always get one idiot, don't you? We mentioned in the last show, didn't we, about someone trying to have a go at Roy Keane or whatever.
Yeah.
That was a full story, but whatever. Just you're always going to get some idiot who spoils it.
Yeah.
What about you? Anyway, Sam?
Well, obviously...
Players in your teenagers.
Yeah, well, so... My teenagers was still Gaza, because that would have been like Italian 90 and stuff. And as I was saying, as you get a bit older, you start to like people in different ways. So when you start playing football... I think you start to like people. I mean, I used to like Lee Clark, and then when I was at Newcastle, and there was David Kelly, and then I actually played with Dave. I used to love David Kelly because he was brilliant when he was at Newcastle. I remember he scored 4 one time against Leicester or something. And then he signed for Sunderland when I was like 18 at Sunderland, and I was like, David Kelly,
wow,
like amazing. I roomed with him a few times, and I was like I was like, you know, when I was like, I used to buzz off you, you know. Yeah. He's come dead. He's like, we used to buzz off you. But then about the second trip, it was my birthday. It must have been my 18th or 19th birthday, and I was away with all the Sunderland lads, obviously green as grass. So I sat there, and they brought out the cake for my birthday, like the night before. I think we played away, like in London, I don't know, like Arsenal or something away. And they brought out the cake for me, like my birthday. I must have been 19. And David Kelly's like sat next to me, and he's going, smell the cake, Sam. That smells funny. So as I've led, the oldest trick in the book. So as I've gone to smell it like that, he's just gone bang and put like the whole cake in my face. And I was like, Ned, I used to, like, you were my hero there, but you just smashed the cake in my face. So he was class. He was brilliant. I got injured away at Huddersfield in the champ, and he was injured, and I come off after like half an hour, got stretchered off, and he come to the hospital with me and everything. I was like, David Kelly come to me to the hospital. I tell all your mates and that.
Your legs hanging off. I know, but that's David Kelly.
That's me. Any coffees, just for me and me mate Dave.
So what about today then? Right, who would like?
I want to know as well, when you're a bit older, when you start getting into football, like who's the people you start to respect? You know, someone who you see like working hard, and so when you imagine you're like 18, 19, like who are you looking up to? Who are you thinking when you're first in and around that like youth team? Who in the first team you were going flipping? Like I'd like to be like him. Do you have anybody like that?
When I was at Exeter, I had Noel Blake.
Noel Blake, yeah.
And he was
nails. He was.
Oh my, yeah. I always remember he did his.
Tell me you think what he called you. What did he used to call you?
He used to call me Coconut Head. I thought it was quite nice. I didn't quite catch on, and then about 6 weeks later, I was like, right, okay, yeah, get it now. But he used to go, big man, keep it on the island, big man. And I used to be like, well, because I just said it out of play. Do you know what I mean? It'd be like, he'd always just repeat himself over and over. But you obviously couldn't say anything because he was just like an absolute animal. On our first day, he took us for an induction in the gym, and he did like a hamstring curl. So, you know, when you lay on your stomach and then you put it, and this thing came out the back of his leg, like a rugby ball. And I was like, what's that? And he was just an absolute machine. Yeah. But he was brilliant because we were all in digs, and like, we lived in this massive house. You can imagine the testosterone in there and the fights and the together. Like the lads are brilliant lads. But like his room was right by the front door. So you've got like 4 floors, massive rooms, you know, like really tall ceilings, that sort of house, townhouse. But his room was right by the door. So when we used to try and sneak out and have nights out, obviously it was nigh on impossible because he was by the door. So we'd try and come up with all sorts and try and stay out and almost do the whole walking in the morning with different clothes. And he'd be like, where have you been? Where have you been, big man? And you'd go, I've just been to the shop to get a paper, because that was when you used to get papers. And he'd be like, no, you haven't. You've been out all fucking night. You've been out all night, lad. And I go, no, I haven't. He'd go, get off fucking stairs. You think I'm stupid, lad. And you'd be like, no, honestly.
He's the player at the time.
Yeah, he was like assistant manager, assistant
yeah,
player manager. Yeah, and I always remember this one night. We were like, he lives in Newcastle under Lyme, Stoke, so that's obviously miles from Exeter. So he was, after the game on Saturday, he was going home and he was announcing it, walking around the place, like, yeah, I'm going home tonight. Make sure this place is sorted for the weekend and all that, like proper, like no problem. And we were like, yes, Blakey's going home, night out, quality. We've got 20 quid, like, you know, we'll make a good night out of that. And so we went out.
For kebab and the taxi as well.
Yeah, and he had this Peugeot, this red Peugeot. So we're walking back from the night out and that, like proper Larry and a few people in tow. And I've literally looked up a side road from the house, and I thought, that looks like Blakey's car. I went, lads, wait there a minute. So I've had a little jog down. It's his number plate, and I'm like, Blakey's not gone. So he's blagged us, thinking I'll catch you like that, no problem. Mm-hmm. And when he used to have 1 pint of Guinness, and he'd be bladdered. He couldn't handle his beer. Yeah. And so obviously we've gone in and I know what's coming. But he's like, I knew he'd fall asleep and we've got the key in the door. And it's like, I've got in and I'm like, oh, brilliant. His door was shut and he weren't ready. And literally, as we got to the bottom of the stairs, which was sort of, his room was between the front door and the stairs, his door's opened and like we have bolted up the stairs and I can hear him like thud, because he was heavy, big lad, wasn't he? Thud up the stairs. He's like, I'll get you. I knew you'd be doing it. And like, he's shouting all the way up. And I managed to get in my room, and he's obviously made the decision to go left. And he's slapping to the lads about, like, you know, like, I told you lads, you should be in your training Monday morning, bang, bang, bang. And I've managed to get in bed and pull over. But whilst I'm in there, I thought, I can't take the duvet over because he'll see me. So I've got to get undressed underneath. Yeah. So I got undressed and my bed was against the wall and I slid my clothes down the back end of the bed. So when he came in, he's like knocking on the door and I was like, what? He's like, let me in, lad. So I've let him in and I'm like, I've done the whole, like, you know, just go, what are you doing, Blakey? What's all the noise? He's like, don't lie to me, lad. Don't lie to me, lad. You've been out. I saw your trainers. I was like, Blakey, I'm literally in my box short. Like, what are you doing? I got away with it, but the other lads didn't get away with it. They got absolutely battered.
He'd be a good person to get on, no.
Oh, mate, brilliant.
He come on a sub one time for us at Rexton against Shrewsbury. I remember coming on like corner against or something, and I remember coming on and we were like, who's picking him up? Who's marking him? I was looking, like Rids. You pick up that number 12.
Like, it was different back then, but he was like, literally, you'd walk in the kitchen, you'd be like, all right, Blakey. And he'd go, yeah. And then he'd walk past you and he'd just cuff you around the ear roll. And obviously, if you did that to someone, they probably wouldn't feel it because his hands were like the size of shovels. Yeah. So he'd clip you around the ear rolls, almost just say, and he'd always say, stay on your toes, lad, stay on your toes. And like, you just get this, and your ear would be ringing for about a week, and he'd be like, Blakey. But he was amazing for me. I've got to say, I was 4 hours away from home and suffered a bit of homesickness, and he was literally incredible for me. Looked after me, like proper fathered me for a couple of years. He was brilliant. Yeah, amazing guy. We'll get him on, definitely.
I was going to say forward, he looks similar.
Yeah. Same
here. Have you got his number?
Yeah. I think he messaged me a
on.
couple of weeks ago. Like he's like, everything you do as well, you don't hear from him, and then something will happen, and he's like, on it, congratulations, well done. He's like watching you all the time, you know? Yeah, it'd be brilliant.
So who do you like nowadays then? You know, when you're older, you like different kinds of players, don't you? Who do you enjoy watching now, Dave? Or who do you like the way they conduct themselves?
I think the back end of my career, I say from my mid-20s onwards, I had an obsession with Frank Lampard, like in terms of I wanted to be Frank Lampard. I watched how he scored goals and I thought, I've got to be able to do that. And I remember I got the analyst at Wolves to compile a DVD for me with every single one of his Chelsea goals, every single one of his England goals. And I used to watch it the night before every single game, every single goal, going through it just on how he arrives, his time and things like that. So I had a real obsession with Frank Lampard. And I think now I've come out of the game and I look back on sort of how good people were, I think I've just got to look at Messi and I just think like what he's done. When someone's current, which he probably still is, isn't he? Because he's still playing just in the MLS. But you look how good he's been over the last 15, 20 years. Maybe not quite 20, 15 years. 15. It's just been absolutely insane. The numbers he hits season on season on season. And I think that there's an interesting thing from a guy called Scott Minto who used to He was doing an interview on Talk Sport last week, and he was saying that he covered La Liga for 4 years, doing like Revista de Liga on Sky and stuff like that. And he was saying that when Ronaldo came over from Real Madrid, there's no way he could compete with Messi numbers-wise the way he was playing. So he had to transform his game just to be a box player. That was his whole thing. So he used to be a left winger or a right winger.
Yeah.
He transformed himself to a box player just to get those numbers to compete with Messi. Messi still got those numbers, but he was still influenced the game all over the pitch.
Yeah.
And I just think that he's going to go down, I think, the greatest of all time. I think he's, obviously, it's hard in generations, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what a fabulous footballer. And I think when you're in it in the moment, and you can take it for granted, but as soon as he retires properly, then I think everyone will appreciate too.
It's absolutely the case. Like, people will take it for granted. I'm like, the way you are there, I'm all over it. Absolutely Messi. But I have this, I can't believe people aren't the same with Ronaldo. And I think for me, Messi's he's a phenomenon. He's a gift from God, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like, he's naturally just what he is.
Ronaldo's worked for his.
He's worked, yeah. And I think that triggers a lot of people, because I think that maybe gets to their insecurities, because what he does is he shows you that actually if you want to work hard enough, if you want to put the work in, you can actually have an unbelievable outcome. Yeah. Whereas Messi, he's a gift from God, so no one could be like him. Yeah. Whereas Ronaldo, I think he gets a lot of hate, because I think he's probably a reflection of what you can be if you really, really want to. Yeah. So a lot of excuses go into, well, we were talking about me this morning, got in at 2 this morning, couldn't get up for the gym because of kids going back to school and all of these, like, I think Ronaldo is that person that would never make any of those excuses. I think, and we adore him in my house with my boys. I'm always talking about him, because he is the one who's the role model, the work,
making the most of everything.
Oh my gosh! What the video that came out recently of him in the gym at Al Nassr, and everyone's gone home, and he's just in the gym, just doing working on his quads and walking around the gym, and then just
I told you a story of Eric Ramsey, who's a coach at Man United, and he was saying that they played away in Spain in the Champions League last year. The Champions League? Europa League? They played away anyway. They stayed over that night, did a cool down in Spain the next morning, then they came back to the training ground about 3 o'clock, got to Carrington, and he said, obviously, everyone gets back on the plane, bus to Carrington, everyone goes home. Eric Ramsey's doing some analysis stuff for the Saturday. So he's up in his office doing that with a few of the coaches, comes back down at 6. And Ronaldo's still there. So everyone goes straight home as soon as they land there. Ronaldo goes straight to the gym and he's doing stuff.
And this is why in my house, he's revered as the best. Yeah. Like I say to my kid, like, he is. And I even look at now, like, getting released from Man United. At the time, I didn't agree with it, and I think, like, we had words about it, didn't we? And I still think if he come back now, he'd do well in the Premier League. Yeah. I think he's unreal.
Well, this is again when he's probably 36 years old. He's doing this. Do you know what I mean? It's not like he's 22.
Literally, video come out last week of him at Al Nassr gym, and he's just doing the same.
He's got nothing to prove that at all, is he?
No, he could just.
He's obsessed with
elite mentality.
To be that good at something, like, you've got to be obsessed, haven't you? It's like Gerrard talked about. He said when he used to go train Liverpool, he said he'd drive. I think he was on BT or something. He'd drive to Liverpool.
Great interview.
And he was obsessed. He said, I was obsessed with being the best player in training. Like, you've got, like, to be the absolute top draw. I think you've got to be a little bit like that, haven't you?
You've got to be gone, haven't you? A little bit.
There's a lot of sacrifices you've got to make to do that, isn't it?
Selfish existence as well, isn't it?
Very, very selfish existence.
You've said how you had to try and, because you're not naturally a selfish person, are you, Dave? So, like, you've said how you've struggled with that. You've had to just, like, go, like, look, I've got to do this, like,
to try and maximise everything, and obviously that's nowhere near to the level of dedication that someone like Ronaldo's got.
It's still to get you to your potential.
Yeah, but it's still to get you where you need to get to. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then the people who feel the wrath of that are usually your family, because you're so focused on yourself and you being in the best shape possible for a Saturday.
And it's a little bit like, as well, like with you being a head teacher, Sam, at Bowbrook, like, obviously with the new building and everything that's going on, like, I haven't been able to even tie you down to a pint over the 6 weeks holidays.
But you need to support your family, don't you? Like, you've got that. And I think, I mean, especially imagine if you're like a partner of Ronaldo or Gerrard and that, like, you know, and I know obviously they get the money and everything that comes with that.
But that's not time though, is it? You still only got 24 hours in a day, haven't you?
Yeah, difficult to live with someone like that.
And you look at Gerrard now, the obsession to go out and manage in Saudi Arabia, and people say it's for the money, but he doesn't need the money at all. Do you know what I mean? He's got an obsession to succeed as a manager.
That's the most laughable thing I heard someone say to me recently. They went, Gerrard's going out there for the money. I'm like, he's got generational wealth. Yeah. His great grandkids will be living off what he's earning now. Yeah. So why would he need that?
Yeah, he's going there to try and resurrect his.
Yeah. And another one for me, just quickly. I know, like, this triggers you a bit, Sam. Sorry, mate. But John Terry for me, like, as I got, like, we were sort of similar age. Like, John Terry for me had everything. Like, he was that warrior of what I saw in Alan McDonald. Yeah. but I couldn't believe how good he was. Like I remember
I
watching.
never realised how good he was until I played against him.
Yeah,
I just thought he was a head it kick at centre half, and then you play against him, and he's a player as well, proper player.
Scary, and he wasn't blessed with pace. So to think of the level that he played at, the top of the top of the top level, without pace in an era where you've got your Thierry Henrys, you know, like playing against players like that, he must have been special.
Yeah.
Do you know one player I always like when when I was at Shrewsbury, we played against Sheffield United in the cup, and Morgan, the centre half. What was his?
Where's Morgan?
No,
Craig Morgan.
Chris Morgan. Chris Morgan.
Chris Morgan.
Yeah, he's my, I think he's my age. I played against him all the way through. Young, he's Yorkshire lad, isn't he? Played against him.
He's one.
United.
Not on the same level as obviously John Terry, but
hard as nails.
like absolute and proper talk like that to every word's to. And I thought, he's just a head it and kick it merchant. When we played against him in that game, I couldn't catch my breath.
But that's
how good was he?
As you get older, see the difference. Like as you get older, though, you love those sort of people. Don't you? I respect Gary Neville, Phil Neville, all those sort of people because they've got the absolute best out of their career because of their attitude. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Remember, talk about John Terry, I played against Chelsea a few times and I played number 10 at Stamford Bridge. And I was kind of, when you're playing 10 against...
Playing number 10 at Stamford Bridge.
I was a defensive 10, do you know what I mean? So it was like, you couldn't play a luxury player at Stamford Bridge, you had to get a worker in there.
I've got a player like that at the moment. He's like, scores goals, does all that, but he's so reliable out of possession.
Yeah, and I think that's what it was. So you're playing one up front, so you kind of how you dovetail each other out of possession. So the striker will go and press the centre half, and then if it gets flipped to the other centre half, I'll go and press and he drops in for me.
Yeah.
I used to press John Terry. He's playing left side centre half. I was convinced he wasn't left footed, so I keep showing him his left foot. And then he keep hitting this massive diag. So I tried to put him on the other side, and then he started clipping balls down the line with his right foot. I remember going to the analyst and saying, like at half time, like, what foot is John Terry? And they're like, don't know. I just don't know what he is. Good, mate. But for the first 15 minutes, honestly, man, I'm ushering him. Like as you showed him you think onto their weaker foot, and he's hitting these big raking 60-yard diags with his left foot. And just
see, I was left-footed, Dave, and I did that diag 6 times out of 10. But that right foot, mate, I can guarantee you the outcome of that, mate. That's like for standing on.
Everybody talks about Rio as being the footballer, but John Terry could play, couldn't he?
Yeah, but no one thinks so because he puts his head on the line for everything and things like that.
Both a lot.
Vidic.
I like him. Vidic, yeah.
But I always say he's the best, don't I? And you're not totally agreeable to that.
When we argue about our Premier League, you put John Terry in all the time, don't you? I like Rio.
And just like last one from me, because I know you might have a couple more, but Roy Keane for me.
Yeah.
I was never Man United. I was like, we were brought up to detest Man United where I'm from, but they were like that. Their era was when I was growing up. They were the strongest in Europe as well as the Premier League. And I was just, everything that Roy Keane did, I wanted to emulate. I wanted to talk like him, act like him, speak like him, anything.
Give us your accent. Give us the Cork accent.
Go on.
It's a bit different in Cork.
I'm trying to think of an impression. What's
It's quite soft, isn't it? Like from West Island.
It's just your job, like.
That's very good.
No, that was Scouse. That was Scouse. Sorry.
Very good. That was.
That's decent. He's obsessed, though, isn't he? He's obsessed again, isn't he?
Yeah, totally insane to it, isn't he? Like standards. Like when you think elite mentality, can you think of many people in terms of like not just himself but collectively for the team have got an elite mentality like that?
Love that.
I can't put anyone above him.
Have you got another? You got another line of West Irish?
I'm just trying to think. Talk amongst yourself, and I'll just come out of it. I'll come out of it.
So to sum up, when we're young, you like someone who's exciting, someone with a bit of flair, someone who excites you. As you get older, you start to sort of
do me a favour.
You start when you get to our age, you're like anybody who like people who are obsessed to work for because you know the sacrifices you have to make when you got families.
Yeah,
I think we can sum that up like that.
Yeah,
we've got time for any questions.
It worked well, I thought, in the last episode we did about a guest. Didn't we? That was good. That was so.
I like the questions. Please keep on sending us in questions. Right, we've got one from Lee Bully. Biggest practical jokes that have been played on you or you have been part of. Who wants to kick us off with that? I think the couple.
Go on.
There's a few. Like obviously we had some at Sunderland, which like I was a victim of because you're a young lad, aren't you? So I'll come on to them in a bit. Obviously Luke Rogers. He had a few. So we had a little spell. Whereas what Luke used to do was he'd put an advert in the paper. So this is what he did. So this one was directly to me. So he's put an advert in the Shropshire Star selling a white van, a brand new or a 1 year old, like £800 like, ring this number, or nearest offer, ring this number, put my number in. So, like, at the start of the day, I just had a phone call. Hi, mate, have you got that white? I was like, no, sorry, mate, you got the wrong number. And that happened again about 15 minutes later. I was like, weird. I was like, no, mate, you already rang me. He's like, I haven't. Throughout the day, I just kept getting loads of people ringing me all day, asking me if I was still selling this white van. So then he'd done that and he loved it and he was telling everybody. So he progressed from that. Then he started ordering skips to people's houses. So he would get skips dropped off. So then he escalated it again to one of his mates. So he ordered a clown. So he ordered a clown. So a clown turned up at one of his mates' houses, one of the lads. The clown's got then. He's like, "Hi mate, I'm here." He obviously full on face painted and all that with balloons and that. I'm whatever he's called the clown. The bloke's like, what are you on about? The clown started having to go at the bloke in the end anyway. The bloke rang Luke and said, oh mate, this clown's here, like obviously, like I think this must be something to do with you. Luke's laughing his head off. The clown started having to go on Luke trying to say, this is my livelihood, this is my livelihood.
Cool.
So then trying to get Luke back. Luke used to come Shrewsbury training mad cars. He'd come in a Ferrari Spider once. Then he got this X5. So he parked up the X5, you know, like near Abbey Foregate, where like the old game meadow. But he's left his window open a little bit. Like you can't leave your window open.
That's the one I had.
Window open. So we've gone down to Rod's shop. We must have bought like 50 Shropshire Stars, the lads, and we've just stood there for about half an hour, ripping them all up and pushing them all through his window. So obviously when he's opened the door, it's just full of like little cuttings from Shropshire Stars. Used to do stuff like that.
Our similar one was Ben Hurd at Shrewsbury. Ben Hurd had been winding Steve Leslie up, and Lesbo at the time had he's got short for yous anyway. He's got that Scottish mentality, and he'd been winding him up, and Lesbo had proper lost it and gone for him, and we'd all had to jump on him and all that. And Ben Hurd was like that type when he just to try and wind you up and then chip off when everyone else has to pick up the pieces. But he'd had a walk into town or something, left his car in the car park at the gym. Remember Fitness First, where Morris Lubricants is now, and he left his window open, but outside the gym, you know that it's like that. It's like a bush that's got all the sticky stuff on it with the little balls and stuff like that. Yeah. Lesbo spent at least an hour and a half, and I was going, mate, I think that's enough now. And he literally, his whole car was full up of all this stuff, and I was literally I'd gone back in and gone, oh, brilliant, mate. Then come out again and gone, mate, I think you've done enough there. He's like, he just wouldn't let it go. And then I was in the gym for about an hour and a half, obviously sauna and jacuzzi, and as I come out, he'd literally filled the whole car up, and Ben Hurd was absolutely spewing.
They're the ones who I like where there's so much effort gone into it. We once took off Ian Dunbavin's wheel and hit it in the training ground. Hit it in the training ground.
That's a lot of effort.
Like that, yeah, just where you go to the ridiculous.
That's a graft. That
where
is
you're doing
well.
it, you're thinking, is this worth the effort for the laugh? Yeah.
Ben Hurd, I was away and I'd asked him to go and let the dog out. So he's like, yeah, I let the dog out and all that. I was away for the day. But he'd gone in and he got, them real strong, horrible air fresheners like you have in a pub toilet. He'd got them and he'd put them under my stairs. So the whole house. And we just couldn't find them anywhere. Absolutely fuming. So I thought, right, okay. So I was thinking about the dog and I thought, right, okay. And he was like, I'd been left out of the squad. So the team had gone off and I didn't have to travel. So I thought, right, whatever then, no problem. So he'd gone off and he said, will you let the dog out? I was like, yeah, no problem. So I let the dog out and he didn't leave the key. So I was like, I phoned him. I'm like, I can't because he's not left the key. Don't worry about it. So I was thinking, all right, well, if he knows I can't get in there. So I'd gone home and I'd obviously, for a while, I'd been planning it. I'd been collecting the dog mess. So I went and I just literally posted in the bags, in my defence, in the bags. I'd been posting it all through his letterbox. Terrible. But I was very young, Dave. Posting it all through the letterbox. And he'd leave all of his shoes outside the door. So just putting these poo bags all in his shoes and all of that. And he was like, mate, I'm absolutely fuming. I was like, mate, that's a disgrace. And probably if he listens to this now, he probably realise now it was me.
We all, that used to be standard part of the dressing room. Cutting up, If somebody was injured, you just thought, if it was one of the lads who you knew was a bit naughty, you'd think, nightmare. You just come in then and cut your socks or your stuff would be in the wash or whatever it was like that. That was just bog standard banter. We went to Cardiff once. Greg Rioch had his room Obviously, he couldn't let anybody get your room key. Got his room key, took every single item out of his hotel. So they took the bed, the pillows, everything. So he's come in his room and there's just like nothing in his room, like just the curtains. And it must have took us like 2 hours. And then like you just had to put it all back. But you just like for that 5 minutes of a laugh with the lads.
We used to do that all the time we used to live in digs at Shrewsbury as the young lads, and we all lived there, all lived at the college, all the same place. And if somebody had gone out and left their door on the latch, they'd come back and their room would be completely made up, but like in the field next to it. Do you know what I mean? Like exactly how it was in the room.
Exactly, yeah.
But in the field, like the window.
We did that a couple
Do
of
the
times.
lads still do all that now, do you think? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't hear a lot about it, but yeah, we used to do all that as well.
When we used to go on away trips, and like the woman would be like, room 2-1, I'd be like, shh, don't. Please don't say what room in, because you know everything's getting stuck on your room.
Yeah.
Then someone would come down, like when you went for a walk, someone would go, I forgot my key on room 213, and they just go and do whatever. Like some horrible ones. Like we had a couple at Shrewsbury, like Dunbavin and that, it was like dirty, like filthy. Then things that used to do were on school.
We got done. We had Halifax away when I was at I think it was Canvey, and I was rooming with Ollie Buquez, and we had absolute schoolboy. We'd gone down for dinner, and obviously, you know, the key, I had like the real long bit of like wood against it, so I've just put it on the table. So I've then got up, it's like a buffet type dinner the night before the game in the hotel, and one of the lads has swiped it, gone straight up to our room, filled the bath up, and everything's gone in the bath. All of our clothes, everything just floated in the bath. Absolutely devastated. So obviously when I found out, well, I won't tell you what presided after that, because obviously I had to get my own back, but it basically, once we got our own back, we ended up we'd been summoned to the room by the manager at 11 o'clock at night, who basically absolutely bollocked us all, and I took the floor for it, and wasn't in the squad the next day.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't go on like that anymore.
Yeah.
Definitely doesn't. Like it got more and more harmless. I remember always on Wales trips, the lads would kind of get the bins, fill it up with ice water, and lean it against the door. So as soon as you open the door, it just comes crashing in.
Yeah, brilliant.
The little things like just annoying though, isn't it?
Just a little, it's all the little things like that.
Tedious but brilliant.
I love that. Right, keep sending your questions in. We'll try and answer as many questions as we can. We'll give you a shout on the podcast as well. Thank you very much. Enjoy that one, lads. Football and Heroes.
Yeah, love it. The nostalgia for me.
I like talking about like those sort of Italian 90 days. I don't know whether that's suitable for our young listeners, but they were the best times in football. They were.
That's the best tournament in my lifetime.
I think it's because it wasn't as accessible football to watch.
Absolutely,
it all comes along. I had one VHS which I would watch and watch, whereas that wouldn't happen nowadays.
We like if you didn't watch it, you'd maybe get that. I couldn't stay up as late for the highlights because they were like 11:30.
You can't rewatch them.
Can't rewatch it. No, there's no highlights. There's no YouTube. There's no like looking back at it. You have to be there, right there. Like now, I say to my boys like, watch Match of the Day, lads, and they're like, I've seen the goals. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like 6 o'clock, and they're like, yeah, I've watched them all on.
I'd love to. There's any podcasts out there where they talk about those old World Cups, and I'd love to listen to that.
Yeah,
we should do.
Should be us.
A little spin-off.
You're a bit mixed up with years, though, don't we?
Yeah, we'll try and do a little bit more research. Anybody listen to us in Series 2, and I was like.
That was the worst episode ever.
I liked it. Zidane got played the tournament in like 2019 or something like that.
Yeah, in 2000 he was 4.
Yeah,
I liked it. That was my favourite. Right, thanks so much for listening. Another thank you to Budgeon Motors, best car dealership in Shropshire. Looks after the lads. Get yourselves down there. Best in the world. Sorry,
best in the world.
Best.
Yeah.
Escalate.
When we talk about World Cups and that, I'm just like feeling so nostalgic and emotional. I'm just like,
someone's had their Tesla delivered, didn't they?
Yeah.
Someone's waiting for you clear.
Someone's got a Tesla with Gav Cowan drives with Budgeon Motors on the side of it. Awesome. Right, thanks very much for listening, everybody. Keep finding your questions. Keep sharing our episodes. Keep giving us some feedback. Unless it's negative, if it's negative, keep it to yourself.
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube @InTheStiffs.
Yeah, YouTube. Get on YouTube.
Yeah.
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 All the best.